The views and opinions expressed on this program are those of the guests appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of 8 News Now or Nexstar Media Group.
As many of you know, I have not been quiet about my urgent desire to see children return to in-person learning.
On Politics Now, education, jobs, green energy. We break down plans outlined by Governor Sisolak in his State of the State speech. Plus,
Republicans are pushing a slate of new bills to restore electoral confidence in the Silver State democratic process.
Election security and checks and balances. Priorities from the Republicans ahead of the legislative session. And
I'm Anna Warnicki in Washington. Today, President Biden took the oath of office in a ceremony that made history. I'll have those details coming up.
From 8 News Now, this is Politics Now with your host, John Langler.
We are heading towards the 2021 legislative session. This week, Governor Steve Sisolak gave his State of the State address outlining his vision for Nevada. His budget is only about a 2% cut from the one approved in 2019. Deeper cuts were expected. The proposed budget also empties out the $97.5 million in the state's rainy day fund. The biggest increase, it's Medicaid spending. It would go up in the governor's budget by $1.6 billion to cover a nearly 19% increase in caseload. The governor also touted what he calls his economic action plan, featuring a green jobs program.
I will work with Senator Chris Brooks and the legislature to pass a bold energy bill establishing our commitment to increase transmission, storage, and distribution of all forms of clean energy. More importantly, passing this bill will create good-paying construction jobs starting this year and helping in our fight against climate change. This bill will attract and develop a variety of new industries, including electric vehicle infrastructure, component manufacturing, and lithium mining.
Governor Sisolak also added his plan includes job retraining programs. And on the jobs front, he also called for upgrading Nevada's beleaguered unemployment system. He acknowledged that it is overwhelmed, out of date, and needs to be fixed.
Our computer infrastructure is still outdated, and our systems can be improved. I'm recommending to the legislature that we work together to modernize and utilize private sector expertise to help Nevadans in need. More broadly, we need to recover the federal funding dollars that rightfully belong to Nevadans. My goal is to increase Nevada's share of federal grants by $100 million over the next 2 years and by $500 million annually by 2026.
Governor Sisolak also wants to use federal dollars to upgrade other outdated state systems. He says his job plan will create 30,000 short-term jobs, 170,000 construction and development jobs, and 165,000 permanent jobs. Another major issue in the governor's budget and the upcoming legislative session has to do with education. That was a key part of the governor's campaign. He says distance learning is only making school harder, particularly for disadvantaged students.
As many of you know, I have not been quiet about my urgent desire to see children return to in-person learning, because we will not recover as a state if we leave our children behind. I will do whatever it takes to get our students back in the classroom. That's why we've worked to supply PPE, ensure rapid testing was made available to all school districts, and now prioritize our educators for vaccines.
All right, so here is how the education budget would break out. Nevada, according to the governor, Nevada actually has $330 million less for 2021 to 2023, that school budget. Million. State officials plan to put $450 million in Federal CARES Act funding towards education. So that gives them an extra $130 million extra compared to this year. Meanwhile, the Republican rebuttal to the governor's State of the State was given by Assembly Caucus Leader Dr. Robin Titus. In her speech, she thanked first responders and others for their efforts during the pandemic. But Dr. Titus does not want to see more shutdowns without Republican input.
Checks and balances among the 3 branches of government are essential for a transparent and collaborative government. Unilateral laws that bypass legislative bodies create restrictive policies that only further damage our already struggling economy.
Dr. Titus also says Republicans plan to propose a series of election security bills modeled after similar legislation in Florida. The budget and party jockeying, it all leads up to the start of the 2021 legislative session. And we now know how lawmakers are going to get their business done. At the start, only lawmakers, essential staff, and a few journalists will be allowed inside the Capitol building. The public has to watch the hearings online and submit their comments on Zoom. Lawmakers will also not be allowed to bring friends or family in the building, again, because of the pandemic. The legislative building will be open for the public again after all lawmakers and staff get their COVID-19 vaccination. However, to participate in a committee hearing in person, you have to show a COVID-19 vaccination card or take a rapid COVID test yourself. The session starts February 1st. In Washington, D.C., a change in the White House. Joe Biden is now the 46th President of the United States. He was inaugurated on Wednesday. He took the oath of office in a historical ceremony marked by more security and fewer people. Anna Warnicki was there.
A historic day here in Washington. Joe Biden addressed the nation for the first time as president, calling for unity in what he says is one of the country's most challenging times. Joe Biden, now President Biden.
I, Joseph Robinette Biden Jr., do solemnly swear.
Biden took the oath of office on the west steps of the U.S. Capitol, becoming the 46th President of the United States.
This is our historic moment of crisis and challenge and unity.
The ceremony kept with tradition, but was unlike any inauguration in history. Overlooking an almost empty National Mall in a city locked down over threats of domestic violence.
We must end this uncivil war that pits red against blue, rural versus urban, conservative versus liberal. We can do this if we open our souls instead of hardening our hearts.
President Biden says today Americans can be hopeful, nodding to his second in command, Vice President Kamala Harris, the first woman and woman of color elected to national office.
Don't tell me things can't change.
The small audience included former Presidents Barack Obama, George W. Bush, and Bill Clinton. Noticeably absent, former President Donald Trump.
Have a good life. We will see you soon.
Who wished the new administration luck and thanked the nation before departing for Florida. Back on the Capitol steps, President Biden said it's time for a new beginning.
We will get through this together. Together.
President Biden participated in many of the inaugural traditions, including the Pass and Review, where the new president assesses the military before returning to the White House for an evening of virtual performances. In Washington, I'm Anna Warnicki. Back to you.
A busy week in Washington. There was the inauguration on Wednesday. Alexandra Limon joins us now to talk about the very busy week. So let's start quickly by talking about Inauguration Day. There were concerns about security in the Capitol. There was a lot of National Guardsmen and women in there. Just how did everything turn out on Wednesday? What's the sense in Washington?
Yeah, the sense is that from a security standpoint, it was a total success. Things went very smoothly. There were no problems reported, but it did take a lot to get to that point. I mean, you know that there were 25,000 members of the National Guard deployed to the immediate area around the White House and the Capitol. In addition, that was completely shut off to the public by fencing. And then in addition to that, you know, the roads and bridges and highways coming into the city, many of them were shut down, so access was very limited into the city, and it was a bit odd. I mean, the night before the inauguration, I was staying at a hotel just to be sure that I could get to the inauguration in time and that I wouldn't have any delays due to the security. And you know, you could just see so many armed members of the National Guard patrolling out in the streets. It's kind of an unusual sight in the Capitol, particularly, you know, in the context of as we were preparing for the transfer of power.
Power has now transitioned to the Biden administration. Now let's get down to business here, just like the administration is trying to. What are the big topics? What are the big things on the agenda that have to get dealt with first?
COVID-19, there's no doubt about that. President Joe Biden and his team have made it very clear that that is their top priority, trying to get the infections under control and also dealing with the economic fallout of the pandemic. So we saw very quickly President Joe Biden sign a series of various executive orders to try to deal with that, dealing with everything from invoking the Defense Production Act to produce more PPE, and also really trying to deal with this issue of the vaccine rollout.
And that was Alexandra Limon from Washington, D.C. Vice President Kamala Harris addressed the nation during the Celebrating America event on Wednesday night.
A great experiment takes great determination, the will to do the work, and then the wisdom to keep refining, keep tinkering, keep perfecting. The same determination is being realized in America today.
As former President Trump left Washington, he signed off on more than 140 new pardons and sentence commutations. Included on that list, 2 Las Vegans. Famed sports bettor and developer Billy Walters had his sentence for insider trading commuted. Walters was convicted of insider trading back in 2017. He served part of a 5-year sentence in prison, but was serving the rest of it at home because of the coronavirus. Walters also paid more than $44 million in fines, forfeitures, and restitution. He's considered one of the most successful sports bettors in Las Vegas history. Telemarketer Kyle Komodo also had his sentence commuted. He had served 6 of a 12-year sentence for scamming more than $30 million in a telemarketing scheme. Komodo faced a $100 million judgment against his company from the Federal Trade Commission. Next on Politics Now, a message of unity.
I think we're going to have a very united party.
Coming up, what Joe Biden told us during one-on-one interviews in the primary campaign in the race for the White House.
Welcome back to Politics Now. House
Speaker Nancy Pelosi plans to send an article of impeachment against former President Trump to the Senate on Monday. That launches the start of a Senate trial on one charge of inciting insurrection as part of that deadly Capitol Hill riot on January 6th. Trial motions have to begin the following day unless a deal is brokered to change the date. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell wants pretrial proceedings to start January 28th, and that would push back the start time. President Biden is no stranger to Nevada. He campaigned across the Silver State in his run to the White House. Our Oracle Manna spoke with him 3 times last year.
I, Joseph Robinette Biden Jr., do solemnly swear.
Joe Biden is officially the 46th President of the United States. A big theme of his Inauguration Day speech Wednesday was unity, a message he shared with me even back in May during the Democratic primaries.
I think we're going to have a very united party. And my message to all, and what they're finding out now that the nomination process is de facto over, they're finding out the positions I had on an awful lot of things were not accurately characterized, and they're feeling more comfortable with it. But I'm listening, I'm here, I need them, and I hope they all will join us.
And now President Biden is hoping supporters of Donald Trump will join him, including Republican lawmakers. Of course, one of the biggest challenges requiring collaboration is how to handle the COVID-19 pandemic and its devastating effect on the economy. In my interview with him in October, President Biden pledged to provide more federal support.
There's money there to make sure we should be providing extended unemployment benefits. We should be making sure those small businesses that are going out of business have the ability to stay open, have the ability to sanitize, have the ability to test and trace, have the ability to bring in customers with some confidence.
President Biden has also set an ambitious goal. He has promised to get 100 million doses of the COVID-19 vaccine into the arms of Americans during his first 100 days in office. Orko Manna, 8 News Now.
You can watch the previous interviews with now President Biden on 8newsnow.com. Just look for the political news tab. President Biden's team now includes former state senator from here in Nevada, Ivana Kinsella. She's working in the Office of Health and Human Services. Kinsella was a Democrat in District 10, that's east of the Strip. It includes part of the McCarran International Airport area. Clark County Commissioners now have 19 applicants for that open seat, and they include former Democratic State Party Chairwoman Adriana Martinez, former Regent Lisa Levine, and Melissa Clary, who ran for Las Vegas City Council in 2019 and has also worked for the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs. There's also an open seat in the State Assembly. Democratic Assemblyman Alex Acefa has resigned. Recently, Metro Police recommended criminal charges against Acefa in a campaign finance scandal. He has not been charged. Applications to fill that seat, which is District 42, are due Tuesday at noon. To be considered, you have to be a registered Democrat and live in the Spring Valley area here in Las Vegas. Government investigations into UFOs.
We're asking the U.S. government to engage in something that historically it never wanted to engage in.
Up next, the new timeline for the Senate to get a report on those investigations and what's expected in the report.
You're watching Politics Now.
The clock is ticking for the Pentagon's Hush Hush program to investigate UFOs. It's called the UAP Task Force, and it's been ordered to prepare a detailed overview of the UFO mystery for submission to Congress. The I-Team's George Knapp has new information about problems faced by the task force as it races to meet its deadline.
The first public mention of the UAP task force came in June 2020 when the Senate Intelligence Committee formally asked the Pentagon for a comprehensive analysis of the UFO mystery. Over the previous 3 years, members and staff of key committees had received closed-door briefings about startling encounters between the U.S. military and unidentified aerial phenomena, UAPs. The Senate Intelligence Chairman Marco Rubio acknowledged to Mystery Wire that lawmakers consider this to be a serious matter.
This is a very simple equation for me. There are things flying over our military installations. We don't know what they are or where they're from. We don't know if it's some other country that's doing it, and we need to know the answer to that question. Simple.
In August 2020, the Pentagon formally announced the creation of the task force, and in late December, the massive bill containing government funding and COVID relief was signed into law, as first reported by blogger Danny Silva. A provision in the bill authorized the task force to prepare a comprehensive analysis of the UFO mystery and submit it to Congress within 180 days, meaning around June 1st. Getting a straight story out of the Pentagon about its interest in UFOs has always been a challenge, and the same is true of the UAP task force. For one thing, it's not exactly a new creation. Veteran intelligence officer Lou Elizondo spent years as the program manager for ATIP, the Pentagon's previous UFO investigation. When the New York Times first revealed the existence of ATIP in December 2017, the Pentagon said the program ended in 2012 and that it didn't really have anything to do with UFOs. Neither claim was true. Elizondo said the program never ended. It continued even after he left the government as a loose confederation of personnel in different parts of the national security apparatus. Elements of that investigation formed the basis of the newly named UAP task force. Members of the public and media excited about the scheduled report to Congress might want to temper their expectations because there are significant barriers to anything resembling full disclosure. For one thing, the report to Congress will be unclassified, meaning it will not contain the most sensitive, most classified cases or incidents, because those directly involve national security matters. Key committees will likely receive separate annex reports regarding classified incidents. That information isn't likely to be made public. Secondly, while the funding bill ordered the task force to produce a comprehensive analysis of the UAP mystery, it provided no funding. The task force was not provided with an actual budget, only marching orders. Mystery Wire asked the Pentagon to comment on this, but received no reply. Thirdly, sources familiar with the task force say there's been a major change at the top. The high-ranking official who's led the UFO investigation for years is out. The name has not been made public, but we've learned it's the same official who's been briefing Congress since 2018 and who's been directly responsible for getting elected officials interested in the subject. The Navy assigned the official to other duties. Can the task force finish its job by June 1st? Maybe not. It's a gigantic undertaking to search the entire national security system for all relevant videos and files, and then to seek input and analysis from other intelligence agencies. It is entirely possible the task force will have to ask Congress for more time. In a radio interview in late December, Lou Elizondo announced he has left To the Stars Academy, the company which coaxed him into coming forward in 2017. Also departed is veteran intelligence official Chris Mellon. Both men say they're still supportive of TTSA, but are now largely focused on behind-the-scenes work in Washington to encourage Congress and the Pentagon to move the UFO ball down the field. Elizondo cautioned the public to lower its expectations about the task force report, saying, quote, "This is a process, not an event. We're asking the U.S. government to engage in something that historically it never wanted to engage in. I think a lot of people have these false hopes that disclosure is here and all of a sudden have this huge announcement by the U.S. government. Progress is being made, Elizondo says. The task force report will be just the beginning. He hopes Congress will authorize a permanent UAP program, one that has a budget and the authority to truly investigate a perplexing mystery. For Mystery Wire, George Knapp reporting.
Welcome back to Politics Now. President Joe Biden says he plans to review the Trump administration's downsizing of 2 national monuments here in the Southwest. The boundaries redrawn in 2017 for Bears Ears and the Grand Staircase Escalante are both in southern Utah. The president says, President Biden, he is re-examining the monument's role as part of his plan to fight climate change. This week in What to Watch, the state of North Las Vegas. Mayor John Lee will have his State of the City address Wednesday at 10 o'clock in the morning. Mayor Lee says he will outline his idea, the horizon for the city, and coronavirus efforts. It'll be streamed on the city's Facebook and YouTube pages. Plus, 2 members of the state legislature need to be filled, 2 seats anyway, by the Clark County Commission. Both are Democratic seats. We are waiting to see who Clark County will choose to replace Ivana Kinsella and Alex Acefa in the Assembly. Don't forget, the legislative session starts on February 1st. And coming up next week here on Politics Now, we'll take a look at the state Senate, speak with lawmakers there about what they are expecting in the legislative session up in Carson City. Certainly a lot on their plate this year. And we'll also watch to see in Washington, D.C. about a possible impeachment hearing and a trial in the Senate as well. So a lot to watch as we look ahead to next week. That's all for us this week here on Politics Now. Thank you very much for watching. All the political news you need is on 8newsnow.com. We'll see you next Saturday.